Okay, so one really cool thing that I wanted to share today is I'm super happy that March is over. I get to dedicate lots of time to family and to cooking and to research. So today I wanted to share with you how important it is to always be doing research and to always be learning and to never kind of get stuck in one spot and always be malleable with your thinking. That leaves the door open for understanding so much. And so I kind of want to share with you real quick today about my experiences so far. So one of the biggest things that I really like to teach about is gut health. And I really love metabolism and I really love gut health. I think these two are insulin resistance and inflammation from your gut are the primary driving forces of so many different diseases that we face. And so it's very, very important to understand both of these completely and all of the medicinal supports that we have for those. So I just want to take a second, talk about gut health for a second. One of the things that I wanted to be able to say is that, not that what I used to teach was wrong, but it wasn't the full story. And I always have to be open to accepting new information in order to be able to unlock my ability to understand what that full story is. All of this new research is just coming out, and our understanding of gut health and its role into so many different chronic diseases that we face is we're just beginning to scratch the surface, just beginning to understand it. It's really, really cool. And I try to stay on top of that as much as possible. So one of the things that we need to understand about gut health and how important it is to keep our guts, our intestines healthy is that they are the primary generator, creator, and source of inflammation inside of our body. It comes from our guts. The problem is that the bacteria get from inside of your guts. You have trillions and trillions and trillions of bacteria in your gut. Some will say you have 10 times more bacterial cells in your intestines than you do human cells that make up your entire body. That's a lot of bacteria that we got to keep inside of our intestines, because when they get out of your intestines, your immune system sees these as pathogens and needs to control them. And so the first thing that it does is send inflammation, and then the activated immune system has to turn on to try to create antibodies to be able to control the infection. Those antibodies need to be delivered via the lymphatic system. And so there's a whole cascade of problems that happen when the bacteria come from inside of your body or from inside of your intestines to inside of your body. It's funny, your intestines are outside of your body, but they get inside of your body, and that massive inflammatory response is necessary to immobilize the bacteria, immobilize the pathogens, and mobilize your immune system. So that inflammation, just the flood of bacteria for somebody who has leaky gut or intestinal permeability, is those bacteria get out into your body, and the amount of inflammation that is needed to control them is so great that inflammation starts affecting other parts of your body. Like people who have inflammatory bowel diseases like ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease are aware of this condition called enteropathic arthritis. So it's not arthritis, but there's so much inflammation coming from your gut, it makes your entire body feel like you have arthritis everywhere. Now that you get that inflammation spreading in throughout your central nervous system, then you have one of the largest and greatest contributors, in my experience, to mental health issues like anxiety and depression. And how important it is to control your guts and to keep your intestines happy and healthy has a super important role in your mental health. So, like Nagashimshkika, intestine medicine like Gobaagamish, the sweet fern, Comptonia peregrina, being one of the most powerful ways to help your gut get better. A couple of years ago, probably like 4 or 5 years ago, we have this understanding that you have your guts, you have your intestines, the intestinal wall, and then you have this layer of mucin, this barrier layer. It's made up of an amino acid called glutamine that seals your intestines shut, prevents the bacteria from getting out. So the biggest issue is not epithelial junctions spreading, but it's the consumption of the mucin, the mucosal barrier, that glutamine. The bacteria, it's because bacteria eat, I used to teach, bacteria eat two things. They eat fiber from the food that you eat. When they don't have enough fiber, they start eating through the mucin. When they eat through the mucin, they get out into your body. When they get into your body, they create the massive inflammatory response, the massive immune presence, and accumulation of immunosenescence, which is autoimmune issues begin there, and then spread throughout the rest of your body. So the problem, we have to keep the bacteria in our intestines, and we do that with that barrier, that sealant keeps them in there. So those bacteria see that sealant as food, so the bacteria need to be kept happy and healthy. And in order to keep them happy and healthy, they need enough fiber. And what does enough fiber look like? Well, ancestrally, we used to have 100 grams to 200 grams of fiber every day. That I found out, like, this is totally bogus. This is totally false. And especially for the Anishinaabe being very low to no fiber for our entire lives. We don't need fiber. And those bacteria, when they do eat fiber. And when they do eat fiber, they need a lot of fiber in order to keep the bacteria in your guts happy and healthy. That looks like between 12 and 15 pounds of fruits and vegetables almost on a weekly basis. That's how much fiber they need to be happy and healthy. That's a lot of fruit and veg. That's a lot of calorie. That's a lot of carbohydrates. And can we manage that carbohydrate load? Can we handle that amount of energy coming inside of our body? Can we use that energy? Is another question, but I want to kind of focus on gut health here for a second, because one of the things that I was able to learn and understand a little bit later is that bacteria actually eat three things. They eat fiber from the food that you eat, mucin, the intestinal barrier, or they eat butyrate. Butyrate is a byproduct or a breakdown component, a metabolite of beta-hydroxybutyrate, which is the main primary ketone body that your body makes when it's in ketosis, when you're restricting carbohydrates or when you're fasted, when you're starving. And that's one of the biggest problems, because we're not hungry. Like, we'll get up to go to the bathroom and have a snack in the middle of the night. And then we're not restricting carbohydrates. We have 400 to 500 grams of carbohydrates every single day in Canada and the US, and probably worse in indigenous communities. So there's no butyrate. And also, like, diabetes, one thing that's consistent with diabetics is that they don't make any ketones. So those bacteria are not happy at all. They eat through the mucin and they get out into your body, generate massive amounts of inflammation that create and drive so many chronic diseases that we face. But that's not even the full picture either, because adrenaline and cortisol, or stress, plays a really important role in the situation as well. Whereas that barrier, the mucosal lining, that mucin, is made up primarily of an endogenous amino acid called glutamine. Endogenous meaning your body can make it on its own. Glutamine is a conditionally essential amino acid, though, meaning there are conditions you could put your body through where it's no longer able to make glutamine, no longer able to recreate that barrier. So then now the bacteria are able to get out through and into your body. That condition is called stress. Adrenaline and cortisol inhibit the production of glutamine, so your intestines are not going to be able to recreate that barrier, and the bacteria just simply get to eat through it and get out into your body, create these massive responses and ulceration and bigger holes. So it was really important for me to understand that total picture, the relationship between fiber and the food that we eat, bacteria eating mucin, and bacteria needing butyrate. When bacteria are eating butyrate, they need a very, very small amount of it in order to stay happy and healthy. Butyrate is a very energy dense chemical, and they need very little of it, which is contrast to fruits and vegetables, where in order to keep them happy and healthy with fiber, they need a lot of it. One of the things that I wanted to explain today is that there are these plant toxins found inside of plants. I mean, the way that we utilize plants for medicine is by harnessing those toxins, utilizing them in a very specific way to be able to allow those toxins to enter our body and elicit a positive hormetic response. That's the way most medicine works. But when we start to use plants are medicine. When we start to use medicine and start eating it all day, every day, and we overconsume plant foods, and this overconsumption of plant foods, these overconsumption of plant toxins, like the difference between medicine and poison is the dose. And I think we've been dosing ourselves way too much with plants. Plants are medicine, and that's the way that they should be used. When we start to utilize them as food in the context of like grains, beans, legumes, these plants have chemistry, and that chemistry affects our chemistry. It changes our biology and generates in us sickness when we have too much of it. We're overdosing on plant medicines, plant toxins. So I hope that makes sense. What lectins do, lectins from grains and beans and legumes and rice and things like that, is they go into your intestine and they shut off your intestine's ability to produce glutamine, or your intestine's ability to produce mucin. So on top of stress, on top of not restricting our carbohydrates and not being hungry on a regular basis. So on top of all of these things, we have plant toxins, overconsumption of plant foods, eliciting a negative response inside of our intestines, preventing your intestines from being able to produce mucin, allowing this whole situation to happen even more, the bacteria to eat through the mucin, get it into your body being unable to recreate that mucosal lining because we're having too much lectins from plant foods. And well, how much lectins is too much? Can I have a little bit of beans? Well, lectins is one of those plant toxins, those plant chemicals that you really only need a tiny amount. Just like somebody who is allergic to peanuts, you need a very, very small amount of peanuts now to elicit such a massive negative response. And so it's not just a matter of, lectins, you can never get rid of it from a vegetable, but you can dramatically lower the amount of lectins that are in a food by cooking it. So you cook it, you get your beans, you soak them for a day, and then you boil them for 2 days in 17 changes of water and pressure cook them. You're going to reduce the amount of lectins that are inside of them, but there's still going to be a little bit, and that small amount can elicit a massive response and inhibit mucosal production throughout your entire gastrointestinal tract for an extended period of time. So that overconsumption can sometimes be just the tiniest little amount. And so what do we have to do? Avoid it altogether. Avoid lectins completely. For the sake of our gut and for the sake of, one of the main primary driving forces of chronic disease, systemic inflammation coming from your gut. That's one of the things that we got to get rid of first. Understanding that medicine is important in our gut's ability to heal, but like medicine can only take you so far if you're having beans and grains all day, every day. You wake up in the morning, you have a bowl of cereal, and then you have a quinoa salad at lunch, and then you have some rice with dinner, some rice and beans, and you're just completely over consuming lectins. That medicine's only going to be able to take you so far. If we want our medicine to work, we got to meet it halfway. And sometimes in that effort of just meeting the medicine halfway, we don't even have to use medicine. Just in our efforts to limit the amount of lectins or eliminate lectins regarding gut health is able to propel us into a place where we don't even need medicine. That was the biggest problem. And then it's really easy to work on all the other things. Everything just kind of falls into place, and I think that everybody is sensitive to plants to a different degree, and we need to find out what that is. And one of the ways of doing that is by completely eliminating plant foods for an extended period of time, giving ourselves the ability to heal. And once we are healthy, then we can start incorporating the safe spectrum of plant foods, find out where our sensitivities are, and go from there. But being metabolically healthy, getting healthy first is the most important step. And I think one of the ways that we could do that is without plants, understanding that plants are medicine and that's how they should be used. So medicine being super important and not using medicine like food. So I hope that makes sense. Really important idea to understand.